What's happening, people? Welcome back to United View and welcome to a very special video, one that you guys have been asking for a very long time. And I promised you guys I would get into my extended network, and try and make this video happen, because today we welcome along football finance analyst, football finance lecturer, Mr. Kieran Maguire. Kieran, thank you so much for taking your time out to join us on the channel today. How are you, mate?
I'm good. It's a sunny morning. I'm not used to that. Took dog for a walk this morning. The sun was out. We both looking at each other going, what on earth's going on? It's been miserable recently. But yeah, as a football fan, I'm probably in a better position than most Manchester United fans at present.
And actually, as a football fan, to enlighten us, because Kieran did say to me who he supports, and I had no idea. Who do you support?
I support Brighton. I've got over 50 years on the clock, all four divisions. Many a non-league defeat in the early rounds of the FA Cup as well. So I've seen both sides of football, and it is the glue which binds so many of us together, and it's probably the greatest thing in our life apart from our family, I think, in many regards.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you, mate. And Brighton are doing really well as well, especially over the last few years in general. So yeah, and also our nemesis, our kryptonite, our bogey team. We just cannot get a win for love nor money against Brighton, home or away. But we'll leave Brighton there for a second. Of course, we have to talk Manchester United. The reason I wanted to do this video, Kieran, and a lot of our viewers have requested this, is because we want to discuss in depth this thing called Manchester United and the economics behind what's going on, how we find ourselves in this position, and to kind of dispel myths that may be going around. We all want to blame somebody or a group of people. The criticism on the Glazers, and rightly so, is there. INEOS have now come in. Sir Jim Ratcliffe has wound a lot of fans up, and the feeling is not great. And of course, you couple that with a decaying football team with poor results, new manager, struggling to keep his head above water. It's all going on. So, I mean, my first question, Kieran, really is from the finance side of it, and it's just going to be an open question, so I'm going to throw it over to you. And how bad really is it from a financial perspective at Manchester United? PSR, credit, debt, all of this stuff. How bad is it? Because our manager literally just said yesterday, it's clear, to buy players, we have to sell.
I think the manager has raised an important point. We talk about player trading, and trading involves both buying and selling. And as fans, all of the interest in who's coming to the club. If you're a football club of the stature of Manchester United, I think the fans have got an expectation, and I absolutely understand their expectation, that you're going to be dining at the top table when it comes to player recruitment. And in terms of the amount of money being spent, that is probably correct. Since Sir Alex retired, and I always thought, Sir Alex was a genius. And I think the club was well run from a business point of view. And I know that some fans will say, what is he going on about? I think as a pairing, Sir Alex and David Gill worked really good together. Sir Alex was a master. On the pitch, he was a fantastic motivator. He could spot a decent player. And David Gill ran Manchester United very sensibly off the pitch. Since then, things have started to go wrong, in the sense that Manchester United have spent £2.1 billion as far as player purchases are concerned over the course of the last 10, 11 years. And I'll give you the actual numbers. These are the figures which have come from the accounts. If we take the last 3 seasons, which are the 3 seasons sort of post-COVID, in 22-23, Manchester United spent £219 million. In 23-24, £208 million. And in 24-25, we take into account what we've just seen in the January market, I reckon £248 million. So you've got the thick end of 700 million quid in the last 3 seasons. Could you name a player in the last 3 seasons that you've signed where you think, wow, that's a bargain? Yeah, you'd be struggling. And that shouldn't be the case. So in terms of the finances, the problem at Manchester United is that the money has been spent poorly, and that has created a series of other problems. Because in exactly that same period where Manchester United has spent 2.1 billion, it has sold players and it's brought in around about 400 million. So on a net basis, Manchester United is 1.7 billion pounds down. And that's a hell of a lot of money. Whereas if you look at other clubs, and let's be honest, Manchester United's peer group is Liverpool, Manchester City, Chelsea, Arsenal, and so on. Those clubs Chelsea have spent a wee bit more, but that's mainly been in the last sort of 2 years. City have spent practically the same, but what they've been all capable of doing is selling players and bringing money in. So the net spend at Manchester United, I think, is the issue. And when I do an assessment of any business, I always say to people, we look at 3 things. We look at the resources, first of all. Well, let's take a look at the resources at Manchester United. Financial resources, it's got the biggest stadium in the country. It's got the biggest fan base in the country. It's got the biggest fan base in the world of any Premier League football club, arguably of any football club in the world. Yeah, Real Madrid, Barcelona they might disagree, but I still suspect Manchester. So in terms of the monetary resources, that's huge. Manchester United generate more money from ticket sales than any other club in the country, that's for sure. In terms of physical resources, it's in the city of Manchester. It's in the northwest is a hotbed of football. So you've got geographical benefits, you've got financial benefits, you've got legacy benefits of the club is in the right division at the right time. You look at opportunities. Well, Manchester United could sell out a stadium on any country in the world. You look at their pre-season tours. So again, you've got the opportunities to sell the brand. You've got opportunities in terms of the commercial partners. Adidas have just signed a £900 million deal. Why? Because it's Manchester United. You look at the front of shirt. So all of these opportunities and it's a horrible word because we don't fall in love with football for words like monetization, but the opportunity to convert that love and devotion of Manchester United fans commercially is there. And I know people that have got hospitality boxes and they tell me the prices they're now being asked to pay.
Staggering.
And if they don't, somebody will go and replace them.
Talking hundreds of thousands.
Yeah. So the money coming in is really good. So you got the resources, you got the opportunities. The third element, this is where we sort of have our Venn diagram, is management decision making. And by management, I mean senior management. I mean at board level. And in Manchester United, you've got so many advantages in those first 2 areas where they are, top 1, top 2 of any club in the country, certainly top 3 or top 4 of any club in Europe. Why are they where they are in the league table today? Why are they not in the Champions League and so on? And therefore, in my opinion, it comes down to the quality of the decisions which are being made. That comes from the very top. That comes from the owners, both INEOS and the Glazers. And it looks like the Glazers have washed their hands of running the club on a day-to-day basis, and they've transferred that to INEOS. It comes to the boardroom because they're the people. They appointed Dan Ashworth and then sacked them. They extended Eric Ten Hag's contract and then sacked him at a cost of, what was it, £10.4 million? So that's my concern. And you can have the biggest fan base in the country, you can have the biggest stadium, you can have all of these advantages, but if you don't utilise that well at senior level, then it's all thrown away.
And that is what we're seeing. Basically, a complete mismanagement throughout a sustained long period of time of making incorrect decisions that have decayed. And like you say, the Glazers haven't stepped in when they're witnessing this happen year on year on year. And it gets to this point where INEOS have come in and they go, oh my God, this has to change. But I've been saying this a lot, and a lot of other fans have, is that INEOS have then come in and also been complicit in some of the bad decision making as well. And when you look at INEOS now, there seems to be a lot of distaste towards them at the moment. phrases like Glazers 2.0. You know, you've just Glazers enablers. You know, you've allowed the Glazers would have been absolutely screwed if INEOS, you didn't give them a way out. They would have had to sell and all of this stuff. How do you see that in terms of, do you see it as if they didn't sell to INEOS, they would have sold to someone. They would have sold a minority investment to someone because of all the reasons you just said of why Manchester United is attractive? Or have INEOS sort of enabled the Glazers and just made it easy for them, and they just want to make money too?
I don't think Jim Ratcliffe's motivations in terms of Manchester United are monetary. I genuinely think that he's a billionaire that wants some form of legacy. My concern is that the heat is being taken off the Glazers. Let's be honest. If the Glazers had announced there are going to be 300 or 350 members of staff at Manchester United going to be made redundant, it would have kicked off.
Yeah,
there were. We've seen protests before, but this would have been so. And if people were saying, well, under the Glazers, the club has got too flabby in terms of employment, Manchester United has got the third lowest wages to revenue ratio of any club in the Premier League. So I've never really bought into that. And of all of the things that I've criticised the Glazers about, the fact that I've got a running ticker on my spreadsheet which shows that since they acquired the club in 2005, the total interest cost is £960 million. Now, if half of that had gone into the playing budget and the other half had gone into Old Trafford, and let's face it, the only people that they've looked after at Old Trafford has been the commercial fans, has been the people sitting in the boxes. I go to Old Trafford every year as an away fan. I'm 6'3". I can't sit down.
Yeah, it's awful.
The toilets are awful. The catering's awful. Why is that? Because they know that people aren't going to stay. Because, and I'll be careful how I phrase this. I played cricket for Trafford Cricket Club for 25 years. Dressing room, half Reds, half Blues. And all of my mates, when the Glazers come along, say, right, well, we're not drinking, we're not eating. We're going to support United, but we're not giving them a penny more than the price of our ticket. So therefore, the quality of what's available to fans in the Stretford end is poor. That money could have been spent far better, and it hasn't been. So the Glazers deserve an awful lot of stick. And you add on that to that £960 million. They started paying themselves a dividend in 2016. Well, you pay dividends as a reward for good ownership. And what have Manchester United won since 2016? Now, look, as a Brighton fan, if we'd won a couple of FA Cups and a League Cup, we'd be doing cartwheels. But let's be honest, there's an expectation as a Manchester United fan that you're challenging for the Premier League, that you're challenging for the Champions League. And it must really... really much really stick in the throat when you see these people paying themselves 20 odd million pounds a year as their share of profits, especially when most of those years they weren't making any profits. And that was just awful. So in terms of anything else, I'll be honest, I'm the same as you. You live in Manchester, you're around Manchester for a long period of time, you get to know people. I know lads and lasses that work at Old Trafford. And the thing that concerns me is now it's a miserable place to work. Mm. Everybody's worried about their jobs. Who's going to be next? You go in with that level of uncertainty, that level of fear. And Manchester United is a people business. And the whole, the people are the fans, are the staff, are the players. If you're a player and you go in and the receptionist who was there last week isn't there this week, or you can sense it. You can sense. Then everybody becomes slightly uneasy. You should be 100% focused. And if you look at some of the culture of some of those clubs who have overperformed in the Premier League, what they've managed to do at the top is to create a culture of everybody's rowing in the same direction and so on. When somebody from INEOS comes into your office, people now shut up because they're worried that they're going to be anything that they say. They're worried about their WhatsApp messages. They're worried that when they get in the If they're in a car which has been booked by the club to take them somewhere, is that conversation being recorded? Is the driver going to report back? And I hear all these things. I go, this sounds crazy. It sounds like sort of spy thriller that I've got involved with. This isn't a football club, but that's what INEOS have done. And I do a podcast and we do live shows, and I've had former members of staff come up to me and say, "Can I have a whisper? Can I tell you about this, that, and the other?" And job losses happen in all industries. I absolutely understand that, but normally natural wastage can do an awful lot of the work for you. It's not just the way. It's not just the fact that there have been job losses. It's the way that it's being conducted as well. Yeah, because probably 95% of the people who work at Old Trafford are Manchester United fans. And I'll be honest with you, I get asked all of the time. I get contacted by people on LinkedIn, and I get emails, and people come to the show. I really want to work in football. I really want to work in football. I love this club. And my reply to them is always the same. Why do you want it? I love pizza. Doesn't mean I want to work for Domino's.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was always been my attitude. And the pay at football clubs, and I'm not having a go at Manchester United. When Manchester United committed to paying the real living wage in Manchester, I was really proud of them. As somebody that's lived in Manchester, my kids are born in Manchester. I know the city. I was really proud of the club. I think it was sending out a message, a really positive message. But the pay in general at football clubs isn't great unless you are playing staff, unless you are at director level, because the supply of people who want to work in football is much greater than the demand. But the way that INEOS have conducted these redundancies hasn't been good either, and it's that culture of uncertainty, of distrust, of fear, which is why I've said, and I've taken a lot of stick for it, and I understand that they're making the Glazers look not as bad as the Glazers ought to be.
And that's exactly what I was saying on the show. I was saying, because basically it's difficult, because I feel like when the sensationalism that happens within the fan base and online and with our shows, people are saying the INEOS are this, the parasites are this, that, and the other, and they're Glazer enablers. And from what you're saying, and I take that point 100% of, by them making that decision to come in to take minority investment, be the face of all the footballing operations. We're losing fact that the Glazers are the real biggest problem here at Manchester United. But of course, I get that. The other pushback to that is, but Flex, hang on a minute. INEOS are helping them. They're taking the pressure away. So we're now mad at INEOS. That INEOS could have been the minority investors that the Glazers would have found. I think they had Carlisle Group. I think they would have, there was some other groups that before INEOS and Sheikh Jassim wanted to buy the club or a significant share of the club, they would have found these minority investors somewhere else because of all the factors you stated of why Manchester United is appealing. The Glazers didn't want to sell all of the club, or they didn't receive a bid that satisfied their need for all of the club, 10 billion, 9 billion, whatever it is. So you can only buy what's available, what's up for sale, which is what happened. Do you think that INEOS, the way that they've come in and the things they've had to do, maybe from a numbers point of view, and how they're trying to make Man United more sustainable, are these things necessary of what they're doing? Shrinking the workforce, tightening the budget, going through everything with 5-2 comb and saying, well, do we need this, and this? It's not popular, but I'm going to have to cut this. I'm going to have to cut that. Sir Alex, ambassadorial roles, etc. Christmas budgets, and Christmas bonuses. Sorry, are these things truly necessary? Or could this be done in a different way because you're talking about multi-billionaires? Glazers could just put more money in. This would solve it. INEOS, like I said, his factor is not money. He's got loads of money, richest man in Britain, could just put more money in. But from a business, why would I buy a minority of something and just flood all my own cash into it? How do you see that trade-off of just how much INEOS have to change because Man United has to change versus they're kind of following suit from the Glazers?
Well, I go back to this point that Manchester United pay £55 in wages for every £100 that comes into the club. That's the third best in the Premier League. UEFA say anything over £70 is a concern. So in terms of costs, are there cost issues at Manchester United? Yes. Is it Dave and Sharon who work in the ticket office? Is it your physio? Is it the guy that goes round to local schools and does a little bit of training for local schools? Are they the problem at Manchester United? Okay, get rid of those. Let's say that they're on 40 grand a piece. That's 160 grand saved. And then you look, 21.4 million pounds to change the manager. We don't know how much it costs to recruit and then sack Dan Ashworth. And they have spent £250 million in the transfer market in the June 24 and the January 25 window, and things have not got better. So I think targeting staff, I understand that from an ideological point of view, some people will buy into that. Could it be argued that there are too many staff at Manchester United? Yes, it could. If I could go into every single business in this country and make job savings. But we use this word job savings. Actually, it's sacking people. It means that mums and dads and brothers and sisters now don't know how they're going to pay the rent and so on. So, the idea that getting rid, and they always, it's a difficult decision. I don't think it was a difficult decision, because that's what INEOS do. If you take a look at all of the other businesses that they've run, that has been their modus operandi. And that has made Jim Ratcliffe a very successful person, a very wealthy person, controversial person. If you talk to people at Grangemouth, if you talk to people at some of the other companies that he's run. But my main concern about Manchester United is that if I'm running a chemicals plant, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to produce chemicals as cheaply as possible, because that way I can make more profit. I can pick up greater market share. I can become more successful. And it's a horrible thing to say. If I'm making a product, it doesn't matter what that product is. Every product, you think about your microphone, it consists of the same as my watch. It's labour, materials, and overheads. So if labour costs are a significant proportion, then you address that. But in the case of Manchester United, and the chemicals don't care. The chemicals don't care how they're made, do they? At Manchester United, the product is on the pitch, and that product is 11 young men. Well, they do care about a lot of things. And again, I've never met the guy, but I was really proud. I would be really proud if I was a Manchester United fan to hear that Bruno Fernandes, the captain, upon hearing about INEOS saying to staff, you're going to have to go and pay for your own coach down to the, when he offered to pay for those coaches himself, my captain, that would be my reaction. And the fact that the club rejected that because it wouldn't look good.
It'd undermine them, wouldn't it? Yeah, it'll undermine them. They look bad.
It goes, well, hold on. Here we've got a guy, and I know about some of the really generous things that Manchester United have done in terms of players doing things for other members of staff, which doesn't get reported because it's not that type of story. And we all know that bad news sells, but I know enough about the club you hear about these stories and you get to realise that 95, 98% of the players are actually really nice kids. And I'm very, very fortunate. I work for the Professional Footballers Association. I teach for them, and I get to see professional footballers as students. And I've yet to meet an arse. And I think that's testament to the industry, that there's really good people there. And INEOS just seem to be treating the staff at Manchester United, those people that have done lots of things extra historically, because it's my club. I'm a United fan. So therefore you work an extra couple, a few hours here and there. But all of that goodwill with staff, I think, has now started to evaporate. And people are looking elsewhere. And you might have said, I know I'm on a bit less money at United than I could earn elsewhere in Manchester, but hey, it's United. That goodwill, that part of the relationship is starting to fracture. For relatively minor savings, when you hear, I know some people in the Netherlands, and they're connected to a former manager, so we say. And when he was told in the summer that his job was being effectively, INEOS were kicking in the option for the extra year, it meant United sent across 3 members of staff in 3 separate aircraft 3 private aircraft. Now, if they can afford to do that, and at the same time they're saying to, some hardworking boy or girl in Old Trafford or Urmson who's been trying to make ends meet and has worked for the club for 20 years, do one because we have to do it. Oh, it's a difficult decision. I'm disappointed in INEOS because this is Manchester. You look at the club website, it talks about greatness. Well, the INEOS version of Manchester United, or what INEOS have done to Manchester United, has tainted that greatness. And Manchester United are a great football club. You've only got to look at their achievements.
I agree, and it's very difficult to, and this is why so many people are very critical of INEOS, which I completely you can't, as a fan, there's no way you can look at INEOS and say they're doing a great job. Absolutely not. You can look at things and say, we're not naive. We understand that INEOS couldn't come in 1 year and change everything and fix the Glazers' failing since 2005. However, they have been, and that is my biggest thing, is they have been complicit now in this year in contributing to making things worse. I would say that's what it feels like. It feels like they've made things worse within a year, not just on the pitch, because we can all see that. But when you break down those mechanics just then, Kieran, about the minute details of getting rid of this, getting rid of that, which was the question I posed, the true answer is those things are basically barely scratching the surface as to what difference they truly make from a financial perspective. But they have a more gravitational effect in terms of the personable side of it, in terms of the goodwill of the staff and the feeling of the place. And that is far more detrimental to your day-to-day running than saving a couple of $100K. So that's scary. I mean, in terms of where Man United are, there were reports saying that Sir Jim feels he has to make these changes because Man United could go bust. Things like that.
That's garbage. That's utter garbage. I've got the Manchester United have got their accounts coming out. I think it's this Wednesday or Thursday for the second quarter. And they will make reference to something called an EBITDA profit. And for people not familiar with financial terms, EBITDA stands for a cash version of profit, not the figure which goes into the accounts. And EBITDA shows how much physical cash have Manchester United made from running the club on a day-to-day basis. So what are they doing on a day-to-day basis? They're selling tickets, they're selling merch, they're doing commercial deals, they're getting money in from the broadcasters. Yes, they've got the wages. Yes, they've got the maintenance costs, the insurance, the transport, all of that type of stuff. They're looking at an EBITDA profit of far in excess of £100 million. So then you go, well, how come there are these stories that do him bust? Okay, well, what do you then do with the money that Manchester United generate on a day-to-day basis? You invest it. And this is where the problem lies. They invest it in players poorly. A deficit of 1.7 billion over since Sir Alex retired in terms of player trading. So that's what you should be targeting. They give it back to the owners in the form of dividends. Well, that's £166 million that you'll never see again. They give it to the bankers in the form of interest on the loans that the Glazers took out to buy Manchester United Football Club in the LBO in 2005. Hundreds of millions of pounds there. There's a further issue that when they have bought players, they bought players on credit. So before Manchester United, you think about your own finances. If I go out to go and spend some money, if I own a fortune on my credit card, I'm going, can't really afford to buy anything. I need to go and pay off the credit card. But Manchester United on their football player, in the instalments of players that they've not paid for in full, owe over £400 million. Well, if you do that, no wonder the manager's saying, you look at Ruben, and you've got to feel sorry for the guy because he just looks beaten. He looks just so crestfallen since moving into Old Trafford. You can't spend money if you owe money. You've got to look after you've got to pay off your creditors first. Is Manchester United going to go bust? No way. I think that's disingenuous. Whoever's put that out is trying to justify the job cuts. Spend money smarter. Pay down that debt. Buy decent players. It's not difficult.
There's so many good examples of it being done all around the Premier League. Your club is probably one of the best examples of this, of having this model of identifying players from certain regions for certain prices, very, very small fees, unheard of players a lot of times, whether it be South America, etc., Germany, wherever, and then selling them at the right time on your terms for huge profits and having the next already. I look at someone like Baleba. That's the next Caicedo, just there already. People like Enciso gone already. Buonanotte got those. You thought, these are the next. You go and get João Pedro for a good free. You get Danny Welbeck. You get Jorginho Rutter, and then all of a sudden, and you look at the sales of White, Cucurella, etc., and it's like the strike rate and the hit rate is so consistent at Brighton. So, with the greatest respect, if a club like Brighton, which you've spoken about the struggles at the top of the show, 4 different divisions, etc., if they can go, right, hang on, how can we be sustainable? How can we use our resources to the best of our ability? If they can do that, how on earth can Man United find themselves in this position where, okay, fake news, part owners putting out there that we could go bust, that's an exaggeration, but the numbers are there for us all to see as why Man United have basically, let's be honest, in January, are looking at offers for Alejandro Garnacho as a pure profit player who is 20 years of age, still got gears to go up. Relying on him too much. But I tell you what, if he fetches the right fee, we'll have to look at that. If someone comes in for Kobbie Mainoo, we'll have to look at that. And also, actually, that leads me on to my next question. Is that the way out of this mess, Kieran? When we're being told, because obviously PSR is the same for all clubs in the Premier League, we have to adhere to it. Man United have misspent for years by themselves, but they definitely can't afford to be getting charges from that on top of this. Is that simply the way? Man United will have to sell assets that they don't want to sell because it's the bad work has been done.
I think in the short term, if you need a complete retrenchment in terms of your starting 11, then you're going to have to go and sell to buy, because there's no wiggle room in terms of PSR. The other big clubs are very good at doing it. You look at Chelsea.
Yeah, they've fleeced us loads of times. They've fleeced loads of people.
Yeah. But they've done it really well. Chelsea, again, I don't want to bore people with numbers. If you take a look at the profits that Chelsea have made, again, I use this period pre-Sir Alex leaving, post-Sir Alex leaving. Since Sir Alex left, Chelsea have made £750 million in profits, not even sale prices, in profits of player sales. And you look at the way that they've done that, because that Tammy Abrahams, Tomori, Mason Mount, Conor Gallagher, Billy Gilmore, you look at all of these players, Maatson that they sold to Villa, and it's every year they're making 50 or 60 mil. And for players who are good players, but nobody said, Chelsea are going to fall apart if they sell that player. Yeah, that's a big loss to them. They've been really smart at playing. And you look at Manchester United. This is Manchester United. 99% of kids in the country would give their right arm to, unless you're from Merseyside or the blue half of Manchester. Every kid in the country would want to go and be a Manchester United academy player. So why has this not been done? You've got to look. It goes back to decision making, and that's where. And I know Ratcliffe has said this is something that Manchester United are light years behind. Richard Arnold was saying the same thing 3 or 4 years ago. So why has nothing been done? So that's the bit I don't understand. Manchester City and Liverpool, they are recruiting people with PhDs in astrophysics and data analytics and advanced mathematics to join their recruitment teams, because they realised that the Moneyball approach, and this is what Brighton do, and this is what Brentford do, that is the way forwards. I appreciate Manchester United, you're under far more of a spotlight, because if Brighton sign, I don't know whether you saw the match against Chelsea on Friday night. Well, that first touch of Mitoma for that first goal, for a player that cost, let's remember, £2.5 million. That wasn't the touch of a £2.5 million player, was it?
Not at all. And his stint since he's been there is not a stint of a player who cost a couple of million quid. And neither was Caicedo, which Man United had dibs on before he even went to Brighton for a couple of million and thought, nah, let's not. And he goes to Brighton. So exactly that. The decision making, Kieran, has just been so bad. And I suppose, it's just scary times as the United fan, because you just think, what is the way out of this? INEOS are supposed to have come in. So Jim Ratcliffe was saying, I'm going to put the Manchester back in Manchester United, whatever he meant by that. He's gone on to not do that. It's just scary times. And you just think, so actually what you're saying is that it is as bad, not in terms of going bust, but the finances are as bad, or if not worse, than we actually think. And do fans need to have a realistic expectation? And when we're looking at summer windows in January, why have we not signed this player? We need signings, we need this, or, just get all the players out, just get rid of them. But in the summer, Manchester United aren't going to sell 11 first-team players and bring in 11 first-team players. So how does this begin to even change?
I think it's a case of spending smarter rather than spending big. I gave you those numbers.
Yeah.
You've spent £250 million in the 2 windows for 24-25. I don't think anybody else has spent more on a gross. And then when you look on the net spend level, that's when things really start to look bad. McTominay, I understand the issues with Greenwood. We're different, but Scott McTominay, they love him in Napoli.
Yeah.
He wasn't the problem. I saw Anthony's goal last night. What an absolute perler. So then it comes down to, if you've got really talented players who seem to be able to play it good elsewhere, something is inherently wrong, and that has to, again, it's got to come from the top. And I don't think, if Glazers never got involved on the football side of things, they wouldn't know what shape of football is, let's be honest. Yeah. But it's not, I hear this phrase, Jim Ratcliffe wanted to put the man back into, he's put the Fail back into Failsworth. That's for sure to date. And I was at Boundary Park on Friday. And I said, well, why didn't he become he should, by rights, he should be an Oldham fan anyway, because Failsworth's part of Oldham. But it's not worked out. And I think perhaps they felt, INEOS, when they came in, because they've been so successful in running these other businesses, that automatically, and this is a common trait amongst football club owners. There was a guy that ran Derby County called Mel Morris. He was brilliant at computer games, not brilliant at running a football club. Yeah, because it's not real life. Well, and again, you look at INEOS's success in their other sporting ventures, and you go, Lausanne, Nice, nothing, not really doing well there. You've got the fact that now they've fallen out with New Zealand rugby, and that seems a strange thing to do. There's talk about the America's Cup, which again, Jim Ratcliffe's got money because yachting, there's no money in it, so therefore it's going to cost you a fortune. It's a rich man's vanity exercise. I have no issue with that whatsoever. If I was worth billions, what else are you going to do with the money?
Yeah, exactly.
You spend it on your hobbies. You spend it on things which you think are going to make you look famous and good. I absolutely get that. He's now being sued by Ben Ainsley, or he's in a, so their ability to not deliver. It's the same with cycling. Does suggest that they are very good with products and not very good in businesses which involve people. as the delivery point.
Do you, to finish off, is it fair to say then that INEOS, as we sort of summarise, the real problem remains and probably always will be until they leave the football club, which is, God knows when that's going to happen. They don't want to sell it. Is the Glazers? Is that fair to say? And secondly, can we make a summary that, or an assumption that INEOS have contributed to making things worse? Have INEOS made things worse at United?
Well, they're 15th in the Premier League. This is Manchester United. This is a club with £1 billion invested in players. This is a club with the third highest wage bill in the Premier League. And the only reason why it's not the top is because if you take a look at the pay structures at Liverpool and Manchester City, they're all geared towards winning trophies. Well, I'm not being rude here, but that additional 25% that you get as a Manchester United player for qualifying for the Champions League, for winning the Premier League and so on, well, it's not being paid. INEOS have not made things better. And now they've got, Project 2028?
Yeah.
I.e. they're buying themselves an extra 3 years. Yeah, 3 weeks is a long time in football. as we know. You lose 3 matches, especially at a club of the magnitude of Manchester United, and that brings its own problems. If Brighton lose 7-0, oh, that was a bit funny, wasn't it? And people move on. If Manchester United lose 7-0, and if you're in the media, you've got the next 4 days worth of material written for you.
Trust me, it's exactly what happens. And I'm already leading into going to Goodison Park. We can all read the script of what's going to happen there. We're going to get outworked, out for another cup final for the final days at Goodison, probably get another Tonkin. And again, the pressure. I mean, I'm not great with maths, but I've had a look at the table and seen we've got a 10-point cushion on Wolves. So by my maths, we should be all right, not going below 16th. I've worked that out at least, and probably 12 on Ipswich. So I think we probably won't go down, but we almost certainly will finish between 14th and 17th. Let's be honest, which is just staggering. Do you think that? I mean, this is more to the playing side of it now. What sort of you touched on it at the start, just about Ruben Amorim, about how you feel sorry for him and what must he be thinking? Does he even have a puncher's chance at this? With all of what you've just laid out, you can only be such a good manager in terms of course, when the players cross the white line, what you work on in training, etc., etc. Because a lot of pundits go, when Man United lose games, they want to go in on Ruben Amorim and all these managers and sort of say, and they make fun, it's the Glazers' fault. United fans will just say it's the Glazers' fault, when really this manager is out of his depth. This manager is rubbish, etc., etc. Does Ruben Amorim even have a chance under these circumstances to really rebuild and set a new culture for playing staff, for players, demands, players he wants to bring in, players he wants to get out? Is he even going to get the freedom to do that under this?
I think we've already seen that Jim Ratcliffe is a man in a hurry with the way that he treated Dan Ashworth. And from my understanding, the reason why Dan Ashworth was shown the exit door so quickly was that Dan Ashworth is a people person. Jim Ratcliffe is impatient. He doesn't suffer fools gladly, and those are traits which work very, very well in business. How many nice billionaires do you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So I understand, but if you're trying to get the best out of people, it's a cause for concern. And I think as football fans, and we're all as guilty, regardless of the club you support, of this. We've fallen into the trap that change is the same as improvement. And people will say, well, hold on, look at the difference of Everton under David Moyes. And I say, yeah, but for every David Moyes, there's a Graham Potter at West Ham. They changed the manager at Leicester. Well, what's Ruud done since taking over? So I think you have to be very careful. And it sounds like I'm terribly named right. I also teach for the League Managers Association. I've got the data. I've read the reports. Changing managers overall does not improve things. I think Flex, you said the right thing. You've got to change the culture of the club. And from that, you will recruit better managers. You will spot better players. You will have a better player recruitment model. And all of these really boring things. And the trouble with the really boring things is A, they don't sell, they don't get clicks, and B, they take time to get through. Brighton stunk out the Premier League for 3 seasons when they first got there. Let's be honest. Yeah. 16th, 15th, 16th.
Yeah, Chris Hughton. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but the culture, the strategy was survival. Focus on finishing 15th or 16th. Anything at 17th or above, that was fine. Focus on that, and then you recruit 5 players of the standard that you're looking for in season number 1, 5 in season number 2, 5 in season number 3. You get to season number 4, all of a sudden you've now got a squad of Premier League quality standard kind of players, a VUMP. And you can get away with that at a small club like Brighton. And you can't do that at Manchester United. They won't. The media won't let you. The fans become impatient, and it's a really tough gig. And if I'm honest, I don't think INEOS are the right people for that anyway.
Yeah, I very damning assessment, but I think a very truthful and honest account of everything, Kieran. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on for your point of view and presenting us with the facts, with the numbers. I know you said I'll give you the boring stuff, but no, that's actually what we want to hear. This is the purpose of this video. It's been really refreshing to catch up with yourself and see this perspective, because huge fan of your work, huge fan of what you do, and I think it's really needed in this area of football media. You know, fan content is emerging, and with this platform, we have a responsibility to kind of look at. Of course, it's alternative to mainstream media. We're more expressionate. You might swear, you might say funny things. You're there for entertainment, etc. And we're emotionally invested, which is great. Yeah. But we need this. This is what it really is about, though, because at the end of the day, when we're so emotionally involved, it's easy to lose track of what's really happening. And it's been really a massive eye opener to have you on. So just wanted to appreciate you coming on and taking your time out, your busy schedule, to spend with us talking about the failings of Man United.
Well, thanks for the invite, Flex, and hopefully the next time we'll be looking at the transformation for Manchester United getting into the Champions. Let's face it, Manchester United could be in the Champions League next season.
And I've said that's nasty work, isn't it? Imagine us getting to say to Liverpool and Arsenal fans, all my mates saying, "So who do you want in your group? Who do you want to be facing?" We finished 17th, by the way. Wouldn't mind going Real Madrid early in that first, try and get in the top 8. We'll try and get in the top 8. 17th. Do you know what I mean? But typical Man United, in our failings and finishing worse, we have picked up a couple of trophies, which does speak for a little bit of the positive DNA of Man United. Being in our worst form, can still pick up a couple of trophies, which, teams like, Villa and Newcastle, they're hanging on for that Carabao Cup. We really need it. And it's like, we were awful, our worst period ever, and still went to Wembley and won a couple of trophies. So, but not at the expense of being an awful football team, because that's what we are. Kieran, thank you so much. You guys feel free to check out Kieran's work. I know you guys always see him as well, and hear from him. It's been an absolute pleasure. Please do smash a like on the video, guys, and subscribe to the channel if you are new. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Drop a comment as well. Let us know what you're feeling about this type of content, and let us know if you enjoy it. We're out of here. Take care, guys. Peace.